A secret song on a darkened stage makes Rose tremble as Bruno Mars sings a lyric meant only for her, revealing a love hidden too long beneath fame and fear. The microphone slipped in Bruno's hand as the first note broke the air, and Rose felt her knees weaken before she understood why. The lights were low, almost deliberately cruel, casting long shadows across the velvet curtains and the sea of unmoving silhouettes beyond the stage. The room smelled of warm wood, old cables, and the faint citrus of perfume clinging to Rose's wrist as she stood just behind the curtain, unseen, unannounced, not meant to be there at all. She had come to watch. She had promised herself that. Just watch, smile politely, leave before anyone noticed the way her heart still reacted to the sound of his voice. Then Bruno sang a melody no one recognized. It was not the playful swagger the world expected from him. It was slow, stripped bare, the kind of song that sounded like it had been written at 3 a.m. when defenses were gone and truth was dangerous. The piano notes fell like careful footsteps, hesitant, intimate, and when his voice entered, it was softer than she had ever heard it, as if he were afraid the song itself might run away. Rose's fingers curled into the fabric of her coat. This wasn't on any set list. She knew every song he had ever released, every leaked demo fans whispered about online. This was different. This was private. Bruno closed his eyes as he sang, and the spotlight caught the tension in his jaw, the tiny scar near his eyebrow that only people close to him ever noticed. His voice wavered, not enough for the audience to catch, but enough for her. Enough to make her chest ache. "When the world calls your name, but it's not mine you hear," he sang, barely above a breath. Rose inhaled sharply. That line struck her like a confession whispered in the dark, one that should never have been spoken aloud. Her vision blurred, and she pressed a hand to her mouth as heat rushed to her eyes. Memories flooded in without mercy. Late-night studio sessions where laughter dissolved into silence, shared headphones, fingers brushing and pulling back too late, promises never spoken because speaking them would have ruined everything. Bruno had always been like this, bold on stage, reckless with rhythm, but painfully careful with his heart. He hid his fears behind charm, his doubts behind jokes, his longing behind songs that sounded universal but were anything but. Rose knew, because she did the same. Fame had taught her how to smile while swallowing truths whole. The audience was rapt now, sensing something unusual, even if they didn't understand it. Phones were forgotten. The room felt smaller, tighter, as if the song had folded the space inward, drawing everyone toward its center. Toward him! Toward her! Bruno opened his eyes, and for a fraction of a second, his gaze shifted, past the lights, past the front row, toward the shadow where Rose stood. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but she felt seen in a way that made her breath catch. He knew she was there. He had known all along. Her heart pounded, each beat echoing the years she had spent convincing herself that what they shared was a moment, not a meaning. That the way he looked at her when he thought no one noticed was coincidence. That the way his songs changed after they met was artistic evolution, nothing more. The next lyric shattered that illusion. "I wrote your name in silence, afraid the truth would burn," he sang, his voice breaking just enough to betray him. Rose's tears spilled freely now. She didn't bother to hide them. The song wasn't meant for hiding. It was a revelation, dangerous and raw, unfolding in front of strangers who would never fully understand the cost of what he was doing. Loving in secret had been safer. This was brave. This was terrifying. She remembered the night they first talked about fear, sitting on the studio floor surrounded by empty coffee cups and unfinished melodies. Bruno had laughed then, light and easy, but his eyes had been serious. He had told her he was afraid of turning something precious into something public, of watching it be dissected and destroyed. Rose had understood too well. Her own nightmares were filled with headlines and rumors, with love stories twisted into scandals. So they had chosen silence, distance, songs written for everyone and no one. Until now. Bruno's hands trembled as he played, the music swelling and receding like a tide that refused to be held back. The song spoke of waiting, of watching from the sidelines as the person you love shines for the world. It spoke of pride tangled with longing, of applause that feels hollow when the one person who matters isn't allowed to stand beside you. Rose felt exposed, as if every unsaid word between them had been pulled into the light. She thought of her own habits, How she avoided eye contact when emotions ran too close. How she wrote lyrics that circled truth without landing on it. How she wore confidence like armor. She had believed restraint was strength. The song argued otherwise. When Bruno reached the final verse, the room seemed to hold its breath. His voice dropped to a near whisper, and the piano softened until it felt like it was being played for a single listener. If loving you is losing, I'll lose it all tonight. The last note lingered, fragile and unresolved, before dissolving into silence. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the applause erupted, loud and thunderous, filling the space with noise that felt almost violent after such intimacy. Bruno stood still, head bowed, hands resting on the keys as if he needed the instrument to keep himself upright. Rose couldn't breathe. She turned away before the lights could rise, before anyone could see her face and read the truth written there. Her chest ached with something that felt like grief and relief intertwined. Love revealed was beautiful, but it was also irreversible. As she slipped down the corridor, the echoes of a song followed her, each step carrying the weight of what had finally been said without names, without permission. She knew the world would speculate, analyze, debate. They always did, but this song was not for them. It was for the nights they never spoke of, the feelings they buried for safety, the love that survived in quiet corners despite everything. And as Rose pressed her palm to her racing heart, she understood that secrecy had never protected them. It had only delayed the truth. Tonight, Bruno had chosen to stop delaying. And love, once heard, could not be unheard. The corridor was cold, and Rose didn't realize she was shaking until her heels slipped slightly on the polished floor and she had to brace herself against the wall. "Rose!" The voice came from behind her, low, urgent, unmistakable. She stopped. For a moment, she considered pretending she hadn't heard it. That was her instinct. Retreat, regroup, survive. But the song was still echoing inside her ribs, and something had shifted too violently to ignore. She turned. Bruno stood at the end of the corridor. No spotlight now, no band, no audience, just him in a dark jacket, hair slightly damp with sweat, eyes burning with something dangerously close to relief and fear at the same time. The applause from the hall seeped through the walls like distant thunder, a reminder that the world was still there, waiting to consume whatever happened next. "You weren't supposed to be here," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. He let out a short, breathless laugh. "Funny. I wrote that song hoping you would be." Silence stretched between them, tight and electric. The air smelled faintly of metal and dust, of backstage chaos and old memories. Rose crossed her arms, not defensively, but to keep herself from reaching for him. "That song," she said quietly, "was reckless." Bruno took a step closer. "So was falling in love with you." Her breath hitched despite herself. "Don't say it like that. You know what happens when people hear things they're not meant to." "I'm tired of not meaning what I say," he shot back, heat flaring in his eyes. "I'm tired of pretending every song is about everyone. Some of them were about surviving without you." The words landed hard. Rose looked away, jaw tightening. "You think I didn't hear it? Every lyric you hid between metaphors. Every pause where your voice almost broke? I heard all of it. And I stayed silent because I thought that's what protecting us looked like." Bruno's expression softened, then sharpened again, as if conflicting emotions were fighting for control. "Protecting us, or protecting the image? That image feeds 1,000 mouths," she said, sharper now. "It feeds expectations, contracts, people who don't care what it costs us privately. So we're supposed to bleed quietly?" he asked. "Write love songs that never admit love exists." She stepped toward him then, the distance between them shrinking until it felt dangerous. "You sang my name without singing it," she whispered. "Do you have any idea what that does to someone like me?" He swallowed. "I do, because it does the same thing to me." For a second, neither of them moved. The tension was thick, charged, almost unbearable. Bruno reached out, then stopped himself inches from her hand, as if crossing that line would unleash something irreversible. "You were crying," he said softly. Rose laughed, a brittle sound. "Congratulations. You broke me with a piano. I wasn't trying to hurt you." "I know," she replied, eyes shining. "That's the worst part." Footsteps echoed somewhere down the hall, voices calling Bruno's name, managers and assistants searching for him. The real world was closing in fast. Rose glanced toward the sound, panic flickering across her face. "This can't happen like this," she said. "Not here. Not now." Bruno's jaw clenched. "So when? When we're braver? When we're older? When it's already too late?" "You think tonight didn't change anything?" she asked, emotion spilling into her voice. "You just told the world there's a ghost in your music. They'll start hunting for it. For me." "Let them," he said, fierce now. "For once, let them be confused." She shook her head. "You don't understand. I've lived inside that confusion. It eats everything." Bruno exhaled slowly, then surprised her by stepping back, giving her space. "Then tell me what you want," he said, quieter but no less intense. "Not what we're supposed to want. What you want." Rose closed her eyes. Images flashed through her mind. Studio lights at midnight, shared laughter over takeout boxes. The way he always listened like her words mattered more than the room. She opened her eyes again, resolve and fear tangled together. "I want honesty," she said, "but I'm terrified of what it costs." Bruno nodded once. "Me too." The footsteps grew louder. A voice called his name again, closer now. Bruno glanced toward the sound, then back at her, something unspoken passing between them. "I'm not taking that song back," he said. "No matter what happens." Rose felt her chest tighten. "Then we're standing at the edge of something dangerous." He smiled sadly. "We always have been." A door opened at the far end of the corridor, light spilling in. Someone shouted that they'd found him. Bruno didn't look away from Rose as he raised a hand in acknowledgement. Before he turned to leave, he leaned in just enough that only she could hear him. Every word was true. Then he walked away, swallowed by noise and light and obligation. Rose remained where she was, heart racing, tears threatening again. Not from sadness this time, but from the terrifying realization that love, once spoken aloud, demanded an answer. The hotel elevator doors closed with a muted thud, sealing Rose inside a space that felt far too small for the storm raging in her chest. She leaned her forehead against the cool mirror, eyes shut, breathing shallow. Bruno's voice still clung to her skin like heat after fire. Every word, every note, every reckless truth he had chosen to release into the world without asking if she was ready. Her phone vibrated. Once. Twice. She knew before she looked. "Bruno, where are you?" She didn't answer. The elevator chimed softly as it reached her floor, but she didn't move. Her fingers trembled around the phone, nails digging into the case as another message appeared. "Bruno, don't disappear." Not tonight. That was what finally broke her resolve. She stepped out into the quiet hallway, the carpet muffling her footsteps, and walked until she reached the door at the far end, the private lounge reserved for artists, empty at this hour. She pushed it open and slipped inside, locking it behind her with a decisive click. The room was dim, lit only by a standing lamp and the glow of a city bleeding through the glass wall. Los Angeles stretched endlessly below, a galaxy of lights pretending to be calm. She barely had time to breathe before the door rattled. "Rose!" His voice again. Always his voice. She didn't answer, but she didn't stop him either. The door opened, and Bruno stepped inside, shutting it behind him more carefully this time, as if afraid of what might spill out if it slammed. They stood on opposite sides of the room, the distance between them loaded with everything they'd refused to say for years. "That was cruel," she said finally, turning to face him. He frowned. "Cruel. You knew I was there," she continued, eyes blazing. "You knew exactly what that song would do to me." Bruno ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing across his face. "And you think it was easy for me? You think I didn't spend months arguing with myself about whether I had the right to sing it at all? You didn't have the right to drag me into it without asking," she shot back. He took a step forward. "I didn't drag you. I told my truth. And what about mine?" Her voice cracked. "What about the years I swallowed my feelings so we wouldn't destroy each other?" He stopped, the words hitting him hard. "You think I don't see that? You think I didn't notice how you flinched every time someone asked if we were just friends?" She laughed bitterly. "Then why force this now?" "Because I almost lost it," he said, suddenly raw. "Because writing that song felt like drowning, and singing it was the only way I could breathe again." The confession hung heavy in the air. Rose felt her anger waver, replaced by something far more dangerous, understanding. "You always do this," she said more softly. "You jump when the fire gets too close. You burn bridges before you check who's standing on them." "And you don't," he countered. "You retreat. You disappear into silence and call it control." She stepped closer, close enough now that she could see the tension in his shoulders, the faint tremor in his hands. "Silence kept us safe." "No," he said quietly. "It kept us unfinished." The city lights reflected in the glass behind her, fracturing her reflection into 1,000 versions of herself, the idol, the artist, the woman who loved too deeply and feared the cost. "What do you want from me, Bruno?" she asked. "I want you to stop pretending that what we had was small," he said without hesitation. "I want you to admit that you felt it too." Her breath caught. "I never said I didn't. That's not the same as saying you did." The words sliced through her defenses. She looked away, then back at him, tears gathering despite her effort to hold them back. "I loved you," she said, quietly, carefully, like something fragile I was afraid to break. Bruno's eyes darkened with emotion. "I loved you loudly, even when I tried not to." They stood there, hearts laid bare, neither victorious, neither safe. Outside, her phone buzzed again. News alerts. Social media exploding with speculation about the unreleased song. Theories already forming, names being dragged into the open. Rose glanced at the screen, then held it up between them. "This is what happens next." Bruno didn't look away. "Let it. You're asking me to walk into chaos. I'm asking you to stop walking alone." The words landed like a plea, stripped of bravado, stripped of pride. She studied him, the man who could command a stage but still looked terrified asking for honesty. The man who had chosen truth over comfort and paid for it with fear. "You've already set the fire," she whispered. "What if it burns everything?" He stepped closer, voice low and steady. "Then at least it'll burn with meaning." Rose closed her eyes, the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. When she opened them again, something had shifted. Not certainty, not peace, but resolve. "Then listen to me," she said. "If we do this, we don't half-love. We don't hide behind metaphors anymore. And if the world turns ugly, I stay," he finished. "I don't run." Silence fell, thick but no longer hostile. For the first time that night, Rose felt the fear ease. Not gone, but shared. Outside, the city continued to glow, unaware that two hearts were standing at the edge of a truth that could never be unsung. The knock on the lounge door shattered the fragile stillness like glass hitting marble. Rose stiffened. Bruno's body went instinctively tense, shoulders squaring, eyes sharpening. Not the performer now, but the man who knew exactly how fast a private moment could turn public. "Open up," a voice called from the other side. "Management." Rose's pulse spiked. "They already know," she whispered. Bruno's jaw tightened. "They always do." Another knock, louder this time, edged with authority and impatience. Rose took a step back, suddenly feeling exposed despite the locked door, despite the city lights still glowing behind her like witnesses that never blinked. Bruno moved before she could speak, placing himself between her and the door. "I'll handle it." "No," she said sharply, grabbing his wrist. The contact sent a shock through both of them, intimate and dangerous. "You won't handle this alone. That's how we got here." He looked down at her hand, then into her eyes. "Are you sure you're ready to be seen, standing next to me?" Her grip tightened. "I'm tired of standing behind walls that still let the fire through." The knock came again. "Bruno, we know you're in there." He exhaled slowly, then leaned in close, his voice dropping to a murmur meant only for her. "Whatever happens after that door opens, I don't take it back." Rose swallowed. "Neither do I." Bruno turned and unlocked the door. It swung open to reveal two managers, one publicist, and a security guard who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Their eyes flicked immediately to Rose, surprise flashing across their faces before being carefully masked. Silence stretched. "Well," one of them finally said, forcing a thin smile, "this explains the rumors." Rose felt heat crawl up her spine. "You mean the rumors you haven't even invented yet?" The publicist cleared her throat. "Rose, this is unexpected." "That song was unexpected," Rose replied coolly. Me being here shouldn't be. Bruno crossed his arms. If this is about damage control, don't bother pretending. You're already drafting statements. The manager sighed. You dropped an unreleased song with deeply personal implications in front of a live audience. Of course we're concerned. Concerned about me, Bruno shot back, or about the story you can't control. The publicist stepped forward. This isn't about control. It's about timing, optics, contracts. Two global artists entangled in a narrative neither of you has confirmed. Or denied. Rose cut in. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. Funny how silence is only acceptable when it protects you. The room went very still. Bruno glanced at her, something like pride flickering across his face. She's right. You've had years to profit from ambiguity. The manager rubbed his temples. This isn't a moral debate. This is risk assessment. Rose laughed, short and sharp. Love always is. The publicist hesitated, then spoke more softly. Are you two involved? The question hung in the air, heavy with consequence. Bruno looked at Rose, not asking, waiting. Her heart hammered. This was the moment she had feared, rehearsed, avoided in her head 1,000 times. The truth stood on her tongue, trembling but undeniable. Yes, she said. We were. And maybe we still are. A breath was released. Not relief, impact. The manager's face hardened. Then we need to move fast. Separate statements. Distance. No public appearances together. Let it cool down. No, Bruno said immediately. Rose turned to him, surprised. I'm not erasing her, he continued. Not after finally being honest. The publicist frowned. Bruno, think about the backlash. I am, he replied. And I'm choosing it. Rose felt something inside her shift, a knot loosening she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. She stepped forward, standing beside him, shoulder to shoulder. If you force us into silence again, she said, you'll turn this into a scandal instead of a story. The manager scoffed. You think the public wants a love story? I think they're tired of lies, Rose said. Another phone buzzed, this time not hers. The publicist glanced down, her expression changing as she read. The clip is everywhere, she said quietly. Fans are already dissecting the lyrics. Some of them they've guessed. Bruno smiled faintly. They always listen closely. Rose felt her stomach drop. This is happening faster than I thought. The manager straightened. Then you leave together tonight. No photos. No comments. Bruno shook his head. We don't hide. The security guard shifted uncomfortably. Rose took a breath. We won't confirm details, she said carefully. But we won't deny what was felt. Let them hear the song. Let them sit with it. The publicist studied her for a long moment. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything, Rose replied. Silence again, thicker this time, layered with resignation. Finally, the manager nodded once. Then you'd better be prepared for what comes next. Bruno reached for Rose's hand openly now, lacing his fingers with hers. The simple gesture felt louder than any lyric. We are, he said. As the door closed behind management, the room exhaled. Rose leaned back against the glass, heart racing. We just rewrote the narrative. Bruno squeezed her hand. We just stopped letting it write us. She laughed softly, shaky and real. I'm terrified. Good, he said. So am I. Outside, the city roared on, unaware that a secret love had just crossed the line from hidden to undeniable, and that nothing, not fame nor fear, could push it back into silence again. The underground parking garage smelled of oil and cold concrete, the kind of place secrets like to linger. Rose felt the weight of every step as she walked beside Bruno, their hands still linked, no longer hidden. The echo of their footsteps sounded too loud, as if the space itself was listening. A black van waited with its engine idling, headlights dimmed, ready to swallow them and disappear into the city. Before they reached it, Bruno's phone rang. He stopped. Rose felt it immediately, the tension snapping back into place. Don't answer it, she said instinctively. He glanced at the screen, then back at her. It's my mother. That stopped her cold. He answered. Ma, Bruno said, trying for calm, failing slightly. Yeah, I know. Rose watched his face change as he listened, defensiveness giving way to something quieter, heavier. No, I didn't plan it, he said. I couldn't keep lying. A pause. Then, softly, yes, she's here. Rose's breath caught. Bruno turned slightly, angling the phone away, but not enough to hide her presence. No, I'm not letting her walk away this time. Another pause, longer. His jaw tightened. I love her, he said simply. The word hung in the air like a dropped match. Rose felt tears sting her eyes, but she didn't look away. When he ended the call, he didn't speak right away. He exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of restraint. She asked if I was ready to lose things, he said. Rose swallowed. And I told her I was ready to lose everything except this. Her chest ached. You shouldn't have to choose like that. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I chose you long before tonight. I just didn't say it out loud. The van door slid open, interrupting them. Inside, the tinted windows promised privacy, but also isolation. As they got in, Rose's phone buzzed relentlessly. She glanced once and felt her stomach drop. They're already turning it into a battlefield, she said quietly. Half of them are romanticizing it. The other half are tearing it apart. Bruno leaned back, eyes closed for a moment. Controversy was inevitable. She looked at him sharply. You're not angry. I am, he said, opening his eyes. But not at them. I'm angry at how much fear we let dictate our lives. The van pulled into traffic, the city swallowing them again. Neon lights slid across the windows, fragments of another world they were no longer separate from. Rose broke the silence. You know they'll ask me why now. What will you say? That I was tired of loving someone in parentheses, she replied. He smiled faintly. That sounds like you. She hesitated, then turned to him fully. What happens when this stops being poetic and starts hurting? It already hurts, he said honestly. But it hurts less than pretending you don't exist. She studied him, the man who had dared to rewrite his own mythology with a single song. You've always been braver than me. No, he said, shaking his head. I just hide my fear behind noise. You sit with yours until it almost swallows you. The van slowed suddenly. Outside, flashes exploded. Cameras. Shouts. The driver cursed under his breath. Someone tipped them off. Rose's heart slammed into her ribs. This wasn't supposed to happen. Bruno leaned forward. Stop the car. The driver turned. Are you serious? Yes. The van came to a halt. The noise outside intensified, voices calling names, speculation already being shouted into microphones. Rose grabbed his arm. If you step out there, I won't leave you inside, he said firmly. The door slid open. The night rushed in, loud and merciless. Bruno stepped out first, turning back immediately to offer his hand. Cameras flashed as Rose hesitated, then took it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Are you confirming the rumors? Someone shouted. Is the song about her? Rose felt her instinct to retreat surge violently, but Bruno's grip grounded her. He didn't answer them. Instead, he turned to her, right there under the lights, under the scrutiny of a world desperate to claim them. Are you okay? He asked softly. The question wasn't for the cameras. It was for her. She nodded, tears threatening but unashamed. I am now. That was all it took. The images would circulate. The narratives would spiral. But in that moment, controversy dissolved into something raw and undeniable. Two people choosing presence over protection. As they walked forward together, Rose realized something with startling clarity. Love hadn't ruined the silence. It had revealed how empty it had always been.